Vika, you used to work for an English school, and after maternity leave, you were given online lessons. So you have experience of both working online and working for yourself and being employed. Could you tell us the advantages and disadvantages of working for yourself, being self-employed, and working for a company?
So I've worked for a company longer than I've been self-employed. That's why I'll start with working for a company. I'm a team player, so for me it's really important to have people around, people I can rely on for some kind of support or advice or their professional expertise. Experience that they can share with me, especially being a new teacher straight after CELTA. So it was really important for me to work for a company. So, and I actually, at that time, I'd never thought I would be like working on my own because I needed that like support team. Yeah.
Right.
And I needed some guidelines. I needed mentoring. So working for a company was like perfect for me in that way. Major perks are, well, first of all, you don't have to look for students. Like right. That's not your job. Your job is just to teach. So you don't have to look for students. That's a plus. You have a fixed income, so you don't have to worry about like having too few students, so that like you cannot rely on your income and so on. Yeah, so it's fixed. But at the same time, that can be like a downside to some, because if you are a workaholic and you find on your own, being self-employed, you find like tons of students and you fill in your every slot in your timetable, you can actually make much more than in a private language school.
So are you a workaholic? Are you?
No, I'm not. Well, I think I used to be, but yeah, since the arrival of kids, I've learned how to like to relax more, and like I started to appreciate downtime more rather than working.
So your work-life balance has improved since the birth?
Well, it hasn't improved because it's all now about taking care of the kids, but yeah, but work takes up like very little of my time. At the moment, none. Months ago, yeah, it was like a lot. So as I said, you don't have to look for students, you have
right.
fixed income, you have colleagues you can rely on for support and expertise. I'd say these are the main benefits of
right.
Working for a company. Also, you have professional development options. It can be like grants. You can get grants from your employer, yeah, on further education, professional development. So all of that, private language schools, they are supposed to provide all of that. So these are big pluses. On the downside, however, being a part of a team, you have to attend most of the time boring staff meetings, and it is a bit of a waste of time, especially when you know that you have to you have like 5 lessons to prepare, and you don't have much time, you know, to spend it on something that you've heard before, but some of your colleagues seem to forget some stuff, so you need to go to the boring staff meetings. And again, as I talked about income, yeah, even if you work like overtime, you don't always well, you just get the fixed amount of money that you agreed to get. Actually, one of the pluses that I forgot, if you fall ill or something happens to you, there is always someone to cover up for you, and you don't really lose that money. Whereas when you work for yourself, and you're incapable of like delivering a lesson, then you lose the money basically.
And you take the whole responsibility. Yeah, that's true.
And actually, in school, another minus is that whoever comes to study, you have to teach them, and it doesn't matter if you like them or not. Whereas when you're working for yourself, you can basically say goodbye to a student if he's being a prick or an asshole. Or very difficult to deal with. You don't have to teach them. Yeah.
You have this privilege to filter. Yeah. Have you done that?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have, and At some point, I was really happy with the students that I had, and they were all like really nice people, and I enjoyed talking to them. So that was really, I didn't feel like I was like wasting my time or doing a chore that I was not enjoying. So yeah.
And have you ever turned students down for some reasons?
Yes, I have. Just basically, well, usually you're just trying to be polite and say like, oh, at the moment, like I'm busy and all the slots are taken, so I'm sorry, I can't teach you at the moment. It depends on how you start, how you find the student. So if it's someone who found you on a platform where they found your profile and they contacted you, then basically you have to have this first trial lesson with them. But you are free to actually stop even that trial lesson at any moment if you see that the person, well, I once had a student who was, he had some mental issues, to be honest. And yeah, and it was a bit scary because right from the get-go, he would start talking about dead bodies under his bed. And that was his sense of humor. But
very subtle.
Who would come up with such a joke, right? It was a very disturbing hour, and I was so, I don't know, kind of mesmerized, I guess, that I'm confused. I was trying to make out if he was for real or not, like was he mentally ill or was it some kind of like bad joke. So I could have stopped the lesson sooner, you know, instead of like wasting all of the 60 minutes on that guy.
Why didn't you?
Why didn't I stop?
Yeah.
Because I was only starting on this platform, and it wasn't like my 100th student. Yeah, it was like one of the first 10, and I was so taken aback. You know, it's the feeling of like being like a rabbit in the headlight when you see a car approaching you and you're so scared that you freeze. Yeah, exactly. So I was so taken aback, I didn't know what to do. I was like, do I continue or do I just say goodbye? How? Or what if I say goodbye and he just leaves the room and kills himself after that?
Gosh. Well, self-employment sounds crazy. It sounds really scary to me.
It is crazy because you have to figure out a lot of stuff for yourself, stuff that when you if you work for a private language school, other people figure out for you. Directors, director of studies, managers, they figure out that stuff for you. But when you work for yourself, you have to figure out everything for yourself, starting from your fee, like how much you're going to charge people, and then just again filtering, as you said, like filtering the students, who and how are you going to teach, how are you going to get the students to, how are you going to make yourself available for them, like promotion basically. Right. So a lot of stuff to figure out for yourself, but I think that the perks definitely outweigh the shortcomings. And for me, I think being self-employed gives so much freedom at the same time. Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, but a lot of freedom. And you don't have to report to anyone apart from yourself. You can just do whatever you want, and you are free and flexible, and this outweighs all the disadvantages. Definitely.
Yeah, that does. That's the biggest advantage, the freedom. So do you think your teaching style has changed since you started teaching online? I mean, do you notice that the way you teach differs from the traditional classroom environment?
I wouldn't say that I noticed any major differences. The thing is that when you teach online, it's like 95%. For me, it was 100% of the lessons. These are one-to-one lessons. Mm-hmm. So at a PLS, you teach only groups. Well, like if you don't have like, I don't know, corporate classes, maybe some, but it's very rare. So you teach groups, and of course, classroom management, teaching groups, it's a whole different story. But when you work one-to-one, and face-to-face, that's the only thing that's different, I think. So you don't give instructions like open page. Well, you do give instructions like look there and there, but you don't really do. I don't do, let's say, instructions checking questions when I teach online. Let's say, so just the way I would do it in a classroom.
True. Yeah, I see. I see what you
So
mean.
it's kind of
It's kind of different, yeah, in the way that you normally give one-to-one lessons. But have you ever taught a group online?
no, I haven't had such experience, and honestly, I would shy from that opportunity, to be honest.
Why would you?
I would avoid that, and I would dread doing that. Mainly because of the technical issues, because it doesn't really make for like a group communication. Most of the time people will just listen to one person speaking, be it the teacher or any other students. So it's quite different from the classroom thing. And I think it can make the lesson more protracted. It would sound boring maybe to some people, to have to listen at length to other people and not having the opportunity to talk themselves. I don't know, I might be wrong, because at the beginning, not at the beginning, but I mean, before I started teaching online, I also dreaded teaching online. I was like, no, it's going to be difficult in terms of technology, and it's not the same as teaching groups. Like teaching offline face-to-face is much more fun. I'm not going to do that. It's not ever going to be the same as teaching in a private school. And boy, was I wrong. And I really yeah, so I changed my mind completely. Maybe I'm wrong again about teaching groups online, but I'm trying to think, like, would I myself like to be a part of a group? I've tried that kind of thing, but again, yeah, you have to wait for longer periods before you can say something. And for me, it's a torture because I like to speak.
I guess that it's just another comfort zone that you have to leave. Once you left the comfort zone of trying to adapt to a new reality of teaching online, then probably the next step is to try to teach in the group online. So I guess that's the next milestone for you.
You've done that.
Who knows?
What about your
I have.
experience?
Well, I enjoy that. First of all, I use Zoom, and there is the option of breakout rooms. So in case you have like 4 or more people, you may arrange them in these groups so that they can communicate one-to-one in pairs. And I use Google Slides as well. It's like a PowerPoint thing, for presentations. And it saves so much time. I mean, a lot of time is put into preparation, but once you have made this slide, this presentation of yours, then the whole lesson is just arranged. It's just in front of you, and it's easy to follow. You got a clear plan, and it's very visual for students as well. So, and again, use this Google Documents so that they can type in, and you can, check their spelling or whatever, and that's great. I enjoy that. I hope my students do as well. So
I'm
we'll
sure
see.
they do.
Hopefully. I was talking to Kate Damashenko, an English teacher, the other day, and she says that she hopes all these online classes will soon go back to offline. And I can relate to that. I also enjoy this magic of human communication in like offline classroom. But come to think of that, I guess that online teaching is the future. And although we all want things to go back to normal, what is being normal is being changed. The normality is different these days. So if you were to choose, I understand that you would rather be self-employed now that you have tried this option, but if you were to choose, given online lessons or given face-to-face lessons, which would you prefer?
If I don't have the option of choosing, like half of the week I do online and half of the week I do offline lessons. No,
Okay,
definitely
I would paraphrase. Which do you enjoy then more?
Teaching online is so much more convenient and flexible that I don't think I would ever go back to teaching offline, to be honest. First of all, the commute, like so much time is spent on the travel to and back from work. I could have used this for something else, like for my family time or relaxed time, reading a book, or again, yet another lesson that I could teach. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. And one more thing I came to think of while you were speaking about flexibility. At school, when you prepare a lesson, there is only so much room for flexibility in case you realize that the students already know the topic, or something like to whip up a lesson in a few minutes in a school would be much more difficult. Whereas online, you have all the materials on your laptop. And as soon as you realize maybe that the students already did this topic, or it's not appropriate, they are not interested in this topic, or anything else, or you need more practice, I don't know, anything, you can find anything you need on your laptop or online, showing a picture. Just it's so much faster and so much easier. So no, I would never, I think I'd never go back to offline teaching.
What advice would you give to those who just start teaching online?
Well, first I would say try it, you will love it. Make sure you have lots and lots of resources downloaded on your laptop. But at the same time, don't be scared by the amount of like textbooks and resource books that you can use. Just like do it little by little. You have to think of how you come across. Well, typical advice that you can see online is like find a quiet place with good lighting, like make sure all of your like gadgets work fine, that you look presentable, at least the upper half of the body. But of course, the main issue for someone who is starting online would be how am I going to find students? So basically, you have to consider all the options. It can be word of mouth. It can be a self promotion on your social media. It can be, or you can just research some online platforms for teachers, but be prepared that they're going to charge you a commission for using the platform. And for someone who's working in Ukraine, if you're not teaching students from Ukraine, also consider your options of receiving payments from abroad.
Speaking of recruitment, which ways did you resort to when you were trying to find some clientele?
At first, it started just through Skype, through like word of mouth. Other teachers who had a lot on their plate and were busy. They were looking for other colleagues to refer their potential students to. So that's how I got my two first students online. Two really nice ladies, but those were like separate students. So I started just teaching through Skype. And then I talked to my former colleague, and she'd been doing that for a few years when I asked her. She'd been using a platform. Am I allowed to name the platform?
I guess so, right?
They're not paying us.
No, the videos are not monetized.
Endorse. Okay, so there is this platform, Preply, but actually it's not the only one. She was using it, and she continued using it, so I just figured I would do the same thing. But there is also italki, and I think a few more. So just research your options if you are considering teaching online. So yeah, I started with Preply, and of course, being like this lazy kid, I didn't read all the information on the website. all the terms and conditions. Yeah. And after my first lesson online, I was like so excited. I was like, oh, now on the website I'm going to see the the amount of money, like the numbers. Oh, I'm going to see the numbers, like, oh, my first payment. And like an hour passed, a second hour passed, and there was like zero. And then I learned that on this website, every first lesson, no matter how long you teach on the platform, is like, it's 100% commission. So the platform takes, the platform takes a commission of 100%. Yeah. So when you start working on such platforms, make sure you read all the terms and conditions, and if you're ready to comply, then just then start.
Thank you, Vika. Thank you. It's been really interesting talking to you, and thanks for sharing so many tips and your experience on teaching online and offline, including. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and that was a great pleasure.